Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today with my friend Brad. And I'm Dr. Shiroko, owner of Heart to Heart Medical Center, and the author of the book, Healing When It Seems Impossible: 7 Keys to Defy the Odds. And I'm here today with my friend Brad, who is a physical therapist who has been working with elderly people for over 20 years and has helped so many people live better lives and function better in their lives. And he's created a plan to help elderly people who have dementia and uh, mental issues function better, and to help their families function so that they can manage everything in a better way. So, Brad, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you.
Well, thank you for having me. This is amazing. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. So, tell me a little bit about why you got into doing this for people. Tell me a little bit of your story.
Sure. So I graduated from PT school 2005, and I've been doing it for since then and working with in the home care area. I've been doing the transitional care, and I've gotten to the point now where it's maybe not as much fun as it used to be. So I wanted to branch out and do something that was maybe a little more helpful for people. And I realized that there's a way where we can plan for things that are going on with our older parents, and especially with Alzheimer's dementia, that nobody's ever talked about before. So developed a plan on how to do it and wanted to help families challenge the status quo when it comes to Alzheimer's and dementia.
Tell me a little bit about like what problems you encountered when you were working with people that led you to this place of um, wanting to help people in the way that you are now.
Sure. The biggest thing I found was just lack of knowledge, right? Like I take my knowledge for granted. I do it every day. I see it every day, but simple things that people didn't know that would help them out so much
Mhm.
is what I really wanted to get out to other people. And that just progressed to, okay, what now needs to happen to solidify that so that they can maintain it and use it instead of just being bits of knowledge. And
Mhm.
so the educational thing is really where this stems from.
Yeah. I have so many clients whose parents are getting older, and even if they don't have Alzheimer's or dementia, they're struggling with taking care of themselves on a day to day basis. Is your program oriented towards helping them stay at home and be able to function in their lives for a longer period of time?
Yeah, it really can help anything. So I it helps with people who want to keep their parents at home. It helps with people who are thinking about moving them to memory care or assisted living. It really, the plan is a living document where it can change and adapt with whatever the situation is for your aging parent. So it's super cool. I love it.
Cool. Do you have any suggestions or tips for people to help them, like short term tips that they could use right now?
I think there's a couple things that I see that are really big problems. The first is power of attorney, where people don't have a good power of attorney document or don't have it at all drawn up.
Yeah.
And so then, yeah, so then their parent gets into trouble medically, and now the family can't do much about it because there's no power of attorney document in place, whether it's financial or medical. And sometimes people have it done the wrong way, where it's drawn up by a regular attorney, not an elder law attorney, which then, if it's done wrong, then there's no actual power in the power of attorney to do what you need to do. It's like having a primary physician do a heart surgery. It's not going to go well. So
Mhm. And how do you suggest, like, I have one client whose parents, she has 3 siblings. So there are 4 kids. And the parents are kind of, and the parents live separately. And one of them has a little bit of dementia, and the other one is having trouble like organizing her life. And so they're arguing all the time, and they're trying to figure out how to organize everything. And it creates a lot of frustrations. Like, is there in your program, is there a way that you can help them sort of not have all those arguments? And because I think that's the thing, is that when you have multiple siblings and separated parents, like how to organize that whole thinking process.
Yeah, there's actually a learning module in our program specifically around family dynamics and communication. One of my coaches on my team, actually, that's their specific role, is to help kind of deal with that and talk through it with our clients and that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
even my wife's family, her grandma just died. They have 10 kids, and I never would have thought it was an issue. And
Yeah,
all of a sudden, the house, what's going to happen to the house? Well, now everybody wants the money from it, and I never would have imagined that. But there's the family dynamics, like you say, just trying to figure out what's going to happen with that, or what's going to happen. I talked to a gal earlier today, a prospective client, and she was saying, I'm not on the same page as my sisters at all, but I feel like I'm in the right and they feel like they're in the right. And how do you settle that, right? It's a very delicate situation, and
yeah,
usually professional help is going to be the best way forward, whether it's a certified senior advisor or even a mediator or something like that.
yeah. I mean, I think that's what I've seen the most when they come in to see me, which is they're coming for their own health problems. But one of the stressors for my clients is that dealing with their parents and helping them. So it generates a lot of anxiety, and there's always one sibling who doesn't agree with anybody else, who doesn't want to do whatever anybody else says. So your plan or your education of people is to help support them through that as well. Is that correct?
100%. Yep, that is that. And again, that's something that I came up later in the process of me developing the program.
Mm.
The family dynamics is what really needs to be addressed, and even just the parent-child relationship, right? Like how much that changes, because eventually the adult child becomes the parent of the parent,
Mhm.
and that dynamic is can be a huge mess too.
Yeah.
So yeah, so just to plan for that, and really my goal with the actual aging parent plan is what I call it, is to act as a user's manual where you could just lay it out on the table for the family to see and say, hey, this is what's going on. Everybody's on the same page because it's all laid out there. Now, of course, you'd have to communicate with your family to set that all up and be on the same page to create that. But
Mhm.
theoretically, you should be able to give it to a perfect stranger and they'd know exactly what's going on and eliminate some of that family dynamic problem.
Right, right. So, and another thing that I've seen that they encounter and is so, I mean, if you if you have people who have thought in advance, or adult parents who have thought, like, before they start losing their faculties, they start thinking about that in advance. That's one thing. But once they start losing their faculties and then talking to them doesn't make as much sense to them anymore, how do you deal with that? Like, what do you do with parents who don't want to leave their home, want to remain in denial about what's happening to them, and don't want to discuss any kind of plan? Like, how do you get to a place where you can get the parents engaged in the plan? Like, what?
So my best suggestion is just start small, right? Like if you need to talk about finances and you want to figure out because like my parents, they're not very open about their finances, but I'm sitting here going, I got to know this because if something happens, it's better for me to know ahead of time. But start small, right? So talk about the market. Boy, the market's been down lately. How has your stuff been doing? And you kind of get them engaged that way, and it might be a slower process than you want, but you
Mhm.
might be able to, and usually can get your foot in the door with that to help talk about some of that stuff. And be patient as much as you can and address it with objectivity and facts instead of emotion, right? So if you can point out, hey, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm seeing, how can I help you? How can we support you with that? That can usually get them engaged and not feel like you're coming at them, but give them an opportunity to be part of the process too.
Mhm. Mhm. Cool. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I have I have one client, and her parents, her dad was still, he's like 90, 92 or something, who's still driving. And he drove into a building.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember if what the building was, but he drove into a building and, like, so then knocked down the wall of the building. Um, and so of course they had to take away his driver's license. And so that's another thing, is dealing with things like transportation and wanting to stay in your home. And so this person's parent, the wife, the mom, is 89 or 90 or something, and the dad's 92. and they've been living in their home and they don't want to leave their home. They've lived there for like 60 something years and they don't want to leave their home. So how do you help them get to a place where, like, well, maybe, move on to something else?
That's the $1 million question, right?
Yeah,
And
literally.
it, yeah, it does come down to where you want to spend money for the most part. Like,
Yeah.
you can either spend money to have all the services in the world to stay at home, or
Mhm.
you can spend the money to move to assisted living,
Mhm.
or you're going to have to spend the money to spend down to the Medicaid, so you get the Medicaid to help cover housing and that kind of thing. So for me and my parents, we're choosing to spend as much as we can on them to stay in the home, but it can be really difficult to do that. And at some point, it may just come down to say, hey, we can't do this anymore. It's not financially possible, or it's burning me out. That's one of the bigger things is, people are taking care of their parents and it's just burning them out. At which point, then it's probably a really good time to talk about assisted living, because some caregivers actually die before the people they're caring for because of the stress and because of the burnout and because of everything that goes along with that. Again, it comes down to where you want to spend the money.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. Well, and the stress is really a lot. I mean, I spend whole office visits with patients of mine just talking about the stress of dealing with their parents and the level of anxiety that they experience because they want to make their parents happy and they want to help them feel better and they want to not have to be running to their house every other day, or some people have to fly across the country to visit their parents. So there's a lot of elements, and I know that it impacts the health of my patients figuring out how to deal with their parents. So thank you for coming here today. Is there
Yeah,
any final suggestion or piece of advice that you want to give the people who are listening to you today?
sure. My biggest piece of advice is obviously plan for the future, but a big part of that is speaking with an elder law attorney. If you haven't spoken to an elder law attorney, again, it's kind of like the surgeon versus the primary care doc. Speak to the specialist, because even if they had their will or whatnot drawn up in the last 5 years, 10 years, rules change, things change, and you might end up in probate once they're gone, or like I say, with the power of attorney not being what you thought it was because things have changed. Get that looked at by an elder law attorney.
And that's a part of your program, right? You have a program that's very comprehensive that involves all of the legal elements, but also the self-care and the emotional component. Like you have the whole package in one thing, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we have a team of 9 of us. Everything from elder law to, for me, the physical therapy, mobility, home safety part. I've got a care advisor. I've got even a placement specialist who can help you have those difficult conversations if you need to. It's as comprehensive as I could have even ever thought of. It's there's nothing like it in the country. So
And it doesn't matter where a person lives, they can contact you no matter where they live, right?
exactly, yep. It's all virtual. It's all over Zoom, or if a phone call is needed too, we could do that. It, we can't step into situations because of licensing issues and things like that. But our goal is to coach you through it and to be there when things happen.
Cool. And so across the bottom of the page right here is the parentcareplan.com is a webinar that, or a class that Brad created so that you can get some education if you're interested. Thank you so
Yep.
much for being here. It's so nice to have gotten the chance to talk to you.
Nice
Thank
to
you
see you,
so much.
Shiroko. Thank you.
Thank you.